Okay, finally, video 9 of this series. And originally, I was going to have this total focus on the Bank of Japan, but it's kind of morphed into really this video is going to be about the currency war. And throughout this series, we've talked about these threads, these themes running through these video series: the debt overhang, deflation, we can't grow out of it, the experimentation with negative interest rates, ultimately leading to a currency war, which we're going to define in this video. And the common thread going through these themes is central bank control and central bank coordination. And we certainly saw this in the last video when we talked about the National Export Initiative, the coordination that was necessary to allow the United States to set a goal of doubling their exports in a 5-year period of time. But whenever we're talking about this control and coordination, this is all politics, right? And what's the old saying about politics? All politics are what? All politics are local. So in the last video, we talked about the National Export Initiative. This is where Obama announced that he wanted to double, like I just said, double exports in 5 years. To do this, we had to kill our currency. And he had a rebalancing plan. The rebalancing plan said, okay, China and Japan, you guys are going to go from an export economy to a consumption economy. Europe, you're going to go from an export economy to investment. And the United States, well, we are going to go from consumption to export. And to do this, remember the teeter-totter, the U.S. currency was going to go down and everybody else was going to go up in order to make our goods, our exports, less expensive, more competitive, if you will, in the world economy. So did it work? Did this actually work? Well, let's take a look. You can see this is the US dollar index. So I'm going to move this chart down so you can see the time frame. So here we are, current day, 3/18/2016, and then you can see the times here. This is 08, 10, 12, 14, 16. So to accomplish this killing of the currency, that's what the quantitative easing 1, 2, ZERP, quantitative easing 3, that's what that was all about. So QE1 actually started here in 2008, right after the meltdown in December, and that continued on until March 2010. As we talked about in the last video, January 2010, State of the Union address, Obama announces the National Export Initiative. And then QE2 starts on November 2010, and that goes through June of 2011. But you can see the rebalancing was put into effect. The dollar starts dropping dramatically. Remember, the strategy was for the U.S. economy to grow substantially and be the engine that pulled everybody through. So you can see that the other countries, the other currencies, the other central banks gave us time. You can see that the dollar basically went down and moved sideways, but what did not happen? Our economy did not grow. And remember what I said about all politics being local. Eventually, these other economies said, you know what? Forget this. We're dying here. We're going to take matters into our own hand. So much for control and coordination. June 2014, the European Central Bank announces negative interest rates. They don't do an implementation, but they give that indication. And then January 2015, the ECB does their own quantitative easing. So you can see that's the first move where the US dollar starts to climb. Then August 2015, you see this big spike here. This is when China had that surprise devaluation of the yuan. Remember that Thursday, Friday, Monday where the market went down 12.5% in 3 days? Well, that was because of this shock devaluation of the yuan. So here we stand up here. We have an incredibly high dollar. And this, if you ever wanted a definition of a currency war, this is what I mean by a currency war. So when you go back to these themes, think about it. Not just the United States, Japan, China, Europe have enormous debt. Whether they were doing quantitative easing or not, whether it was just a function of the spillover of the 2008 killer recession, we have massive amount of debt overhang. None of the QE is working because we had deflation in the system. Remember what we talked about, this being a bucket, right? You pour all this stimulus into the bucket, it's supposed to fill it up and overflow, and that overflow is growth and it is inflation. But guess what? It hasn't worked. Why? Because of deflation. There's deflation, meaning there's a hole in the bucket and all the stimulus just gets poured out. So we can't grow out of it. This currency war has exasperated people to start new ideas, negative interest rates, and we're just perpetuating this currency war. So here's a question for you. Through this entire time, the market since 2008, the stock market has fundamentally gone up. Why? Why has it done that? Well, we're actually going to do another video on markets, kind of give you an update of what's so far going on in 2016. But I think I'm going to surprise you with the reason of why this market is going up. Because when you look at all the indications, all this stuff, this is bad stuff, right? We're getting very poor corporate earnings. We hear nothing but global economic slowdown. So anyway, we'll do another video just independent on that, okay? So I hope this has been helpful watching this entire series on negative interest rates. And just because we're done with this series doesn't mean we won't do more videos. So please come back, keep an eye out for the videos we're going to send. Make sure you check back to the Brinkman Academy for new releases, and you can always subscribe as well. Okay? Thanks so much for watching.